In today's video, we are going to look at a bit of a grammar situation that for some reason people have a hard time with. So today we are going to look at having plus a past participle. For example, having been, having done, having played, having finished, etc. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples to start with, just to show you how we get to this structure to begin with. And then I'll show you some other situations where it's a little bit confusing. So, having edited his paper, Tom was ready to submit it. Now, first of all, keep in mind that in spoken English, you probably won't hear this too much. It's a little bit formal. It's mostly used in writing, but in writing, it is very common to see this structure. So first thing you need to understand is that having is basically like a reduction of a conjunction, a subject, and a verb. What's very important to remember is that this is a perfect tense. Means that whatever action happened here is finished, is completed in the past. After he had edited. All of this squeezes to this. It's also very important to understand that when you're using this participle in this kind of a structure, the understood subject, like he, must be the same as the subject of the next clause. You can't have this beginning with a different subject because people will not understand what's happening, who did what. Now, if you want to see it even simpler, I split the two clauses into separate sentences. Tom finished editing his paper. He was ready to submit it. These two sentences mean the same as this one sentence. Now notice that I don't use finished. I could say having finished editing instead of having edited. So ing here, ed here. Why? Because the finished is understood in the having. Because remember, it's a complete action. So it's obviously he finished doing it. He completed this process. And then we go to the past participle to show the full mixture of the things. I know this might be a little bit confusing, but we can use this in any context as long as we have the same subject, right? So, having finished her chores, Sandy was allowed to go out. Having finished her chores. Because I don't have a verb for choring, for example, right? There is no such thing. So I have to use the finished something. You can also say having done her chores. But there are situations where it can be very confusing what is happening. So I'm going to show you 3 sentences so that you can compare this particular structure with a simple participle and with a gerund, which is where people often get confused. Let's look at that. Before we get into the direct comparison, let's look at this one just to give you another idea of how it could be read in 2 ways. Sentences with having can be used in 2 ways. Having been to Spain several times, Jim is a great person to ask for tips. So, this could be an adverb clause or an adjective clause. Because he had been to Spain. If you're using an adverbial, then this having, again, suggests a completed action in the past. And again, because he had been. He being Jim. So same subject again. And then you can say something about him. So we can use the be verb as well to talk about a past experience that has completed in the past. But we can read this another way. Jim, who has been to Spain several times, is a great person to ask. So you can also say, because he had been, or Jim, who has been to Spain several times, comma, is a great person. Both ways are okay. Obviously a slightly different connotation, but essentially the sentence means the same thing. So now, let's look at these sentences, and this is where the confusion sometimes happens. Having overseen production for several years, Ted was ready to take over as COO. Right away, this was already tells you this whole situation is in the past. Automatically, you understand that this must have had a past participle. After he had overseen the company for several years, he did this. It's done. It's finished. Now, you could say, Ted, who had overseen. You can also make this into an adjective clause. Both are okay, slightly different meanings. This sentence is the confusion. Having several years of experience overseeing the company's production process qualifies Ted to be the new COO. So, what's the problem here? Right away, you should notice a simple present verb. So, if this is the verb, what is the subject that goes with this verb? From here to here is all the subject to this verb qualifies. So what is all this? A gerund phrase. So this whole gerund phrase is a subject. Notice, this is not squeezing any verbs, because there is no other verb around. You must have a past participle verb in order to make this the participial clause with having, with a completed action in the past. This one. Having several years of experience overseeing the company's production process, Ted made the case for his being the COO. Here, the understood conjunction should be because he had several years. Now, what's going on here? This is not the same having as this having. This means because he had. So this had is a past tense of have, and it's the possessive, like he has it. It's his. It's his experience in his resume, for example. And this, again, gets reduced into a single simple participle, having. This is an active participle, a present participle. Here, we have the past participle with the having extension. So two different things. This is not the participle. This here is the participle of the main verb. So, I'm not sure that's entirely clear, but always think about the fact that here you have two verbs. What is happening? Here, you have one verb. What is happening? Here, you have no verb. What is happening? So you have to remember also that a gerund is technically a verb being used as a noun. Having overseen production after he had overseen or because he had overseen. Having several years because he had several years. Two different uses of the verb having. So, if you liked the video, please give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and come back next time. I'll give you some more grammar tips and vocab and all that fun stuff. See you then. Bye bye.